you for this week's Sewing Bee synopsis, and I will share with you lots of Korean inspiration in episode 4. Hello, my name's Sam and welcome to my channel Sew Let's Sparkle with Sam, and this week is my episode 4 Sewing Bee synopsis, and it is Korean week. So today I found Korean week a bit tricky to decide. I've been trying to match the weeks with my outfits and I thought Korean week so I have decided to wear my kind of my leisure wear, but there's something about the design that says to me it feels a little bit K-poppy. I mean, you make up your own mind. But I am wearing the LB pullover by Paper Theory Patterns as the top, and the bottoms are the Derwent trousers by Wendy Ward in her Sewing with Knits book, and it is just my go-to if I'm just about out and about the house. I look like a character from Star Trek. I feel like I could be into Kessie's Castle. But yeah, I'm just nice and comfy. So that's what I'm wearing today. Feel like I need to get straight into it because I feel like a lot went on in this episode. So in episode 4, as always, there will be spoilers in this. So if you haven't watched episode 4 of the Sewing Bee yet, then you might want to head off, come back when you've got a cup of tea and you've watched it and you can see what I thought of the bee. Now, I need to let you know a little something. So Baby Sparkles, my son, has not quite finished his little chat about last week's bees, so it won't be available to pop into this video, but I will be popping it out this week in a little shorts video, so look out for a little Baby Sparkles extra edition. But I did have a wonderful week this week, and I was lucky enough to go with the Festival of Quilts with my lovely friend Luke, who was the winner of the bee last season, so season 10. So I thought, as still the reigning queen of the beehive, I thought it would be great to have a talk to them and find out what they thought of this year's cohort, as it were. So I'm going to pop that in for you at the end, and you can find out what Luke thinks of this year's bees. So yes, so I've swapped Baby Sparkles for another beautiful sparkly human, so I hope you don't mind, just for 1 week. Right, this week for me, when I watch, I watch it three or four times before I come on to you, and I take a lot of notes, and obviously most of the time I am looking at the sewing and the outfits, but on occasions I get a bit distracted by other things that are going on, as I'm sure you all understand. So this week for me, it was all about the earrings. I kept getting distracted by beautiful earrings. Now, I actually unfortunately can't wear earrings. I can sometimes wear clip-on earrings if it's for a short period of time, but yeah, I can't wear earrings. So I'm always a bit jealous of the earrings. And this week did not disappoint with the earrings. So of note, the earrings of note this week was Sarah Pascoe was wearing these gorgeous star earrings, and if I could wear earrings, those would be the ones that I would wear. Orla had the cutest tape measure earrings. They were just little tape measure. Hopefully your photos are popping up as we speak, with editing Sam doing this a little bit later. And then Novello, as well as having the most superb hat, had these lightning bolt earrings. So it was all about the earrings for me, and I was finding the earrings very distracting while I was watching the challenges. So yeah, they had a special guest judge, and he was there to judge through all of the challenges, and his name was Udon Choi from South Korea, and he was expert in the fashion and the challenges, which was great. It was great to have someone different on, and someone's, because obviously it's very difficult for us to judge the interpretation of the original thing when you don't really know very much about the original garment. So that was really great. So the first challenge was the Jagori, I hope I'm saying that correctly, the Jagori jacket top, which was like a wrap top with a collar. It had the contestants had to choose 2 complementary coloured fabrics, and it needed to be a fabric that held its shape. The challenges that they were having with this particular pattern challenge was to stitch in the ditch. Now Patrick called it something else, and I can't remember what he called it, but I'd never heard it called that. And then he said, oh, sometimes referred to as stitch in the ditch, and then I immediately knew what he was talking about. So as soon as I saw this challenge, I thought, oh, this is going to be a tricky one. This is definitely going to be a tricky one, because it all needs to lay flat. And when you're sewing in a hurry, one of the things that you might think that you don't have time to is pressing. And I knew that this was going to be a pressing challenge. You know, you're going to need to get your iron out, and you're going to have to press, you know, press those ties nice and flat, press the collar nice and flat. And I have to say, they all did a pretty good job, but it was definitely, there was a few that didn't finish. There was a few that managed to get ties on the wrong way round. So yeah, it was definitely a challenging challenge, shall we say. I need to get my teeth in this morning. I've got a friend coming over later today, so I'm filming this quite early in the morning. So apologies if I'm looking a little bit jaded. I'm up bright and early to get this out to you as quickly as I can. So just a few little notes. I'm going to pop all of the pictures for this challenge at the end of this little bit. I'm going to do it a little bit differently this week, so you're going to get all of the pictures at the end of my chat. And then obviously the normal reel at the end. And yeah, so Kit chose rainbow fabric. Seems to be his favourite thing to choose, rainbow fabric and pink. So it was almost exactly identical to his tie front top in the first episode, but it was obviously, you know, the Jagori jacket. So he obviously has a theme that he likes to stick to. Again, true to Kit's style, it was clean, it was tidy, it was very, very beautifully finished. Beautiful work. Dan had a bit of stitch in the ditch panic and I was a little bit worried about Dan. I love Dan. I love Dan's energy. I want to see him do well. I think when he's doing well, he gives the best energy. But yeah, we were definitely struggling. Dan was definitely struggling this week with this challenge. I don't know whether he seemed to get the collar a bit twisted, and I don't know whether he used a bit more of a drapey fabric. I don't know whether fabric choice might have been the fabric choice, as in the aesthetic of the fabric choice was brilliant. It went brilliantly together, but I don't know whether he did something that was a little bit more stable, or maybe it just got twisted. I'm not sure. Gainer again struggled with stitch in the ditch. It wasn't hemmed, it wasn't finished, and had lots of troubles, tie troubles. Tie troubles tend to be a running theme through this week. Stuart's was very nice, but not finished. Yasmin was all the pinks. It was very neat and tidy. I really enjoyed Yasmin's. I'll say it again. I think Yasmin is a bit of a dark horse. I love what she does, but she just seems to be ticking along nicely. Thank you very much. Kaz made it very, very nicely, but one of her ties was in the wrong place. Jess's, straight away, as soon as Jess's came on, and then when I watched it again this morning with Mr. Sparkles, straight away we both said, looks like Dad's pyjamas. So it turns out that me and Mr. Sparkles, both of our dads wear similar used to wear similar pyjamas. Just gave me Dad's PJs vibes. You know, nice PJs. Orla managed to gather her collar a bit, but other than that, I thought it was nicely done. Novello's, it just looked rushed. It was rushed. She was definitely found the time constraint really, really difficult, but it also looked rushed. And yeah, and then it was just not finished and very, very rushed. So the placement for the pattern challenge was Novello in 9th place, Dan in 8th, Gaynor 7, Jess 6, Orla 5, Stuart 4, Kaz was 3rd, Yasmin 2nd, and Kit was in 1st place. So a fantastic first challenge, and I was really getting into it because I wasn't quite sure what to expect of Korean Week, so I really got into it. Then it was transformation challenge. Now, I found this transformation challenge really interesting because this week was the first week that they all had exactly the same. So they all had exactly the same raw materials, and then the transformation was a real, then what do you do with exactly the same? You know, it was a real kind of show of what people could do and transform the same thing. So they had a taekwondo uniform, so the tunic and the pants, and a set of the 5 different coloured belts. They all had exactly the same. They all had the same 5 colours. They all had the same tunic, the same pants. Same rules, no fabrics, but you could get fastenings from the haberdashery. No extra fabrics, only the fabrics you were given. And they had 90 minutes as always. And wow, you know, the imagination in that workroom, it was just amazing. I always have a little chat with Mr. Sparkles about what I would make. He always says, oh, what would you do if you were given that? And I think I would have done something a little bit similar as to Kit's idea of where he put his belts kind of going up and around the jacket, but I think I would have flipped the jacket into a skirt. So I think I would have had the skirt onto the trousers and had the bands going the other way. So it would give a real space age kind of almost like, you know, the skirts that they wear in Bridgerton, but just the underskirt where it's very structured, almost looks like a cage. I'll try and put a picture of what I mean. I think I would have used the structure across rather than up and down. But yeah, definitely using those belts for structure would have been, you know, and was a great idea. So they all kind of got finished. They all made an outfit that looked really cool. I thought they all did really well. When I write little notes just to remind me of what everybody's done, and I've put rib of beef because it reminded me of a Sunday roast of all the way that the ribs of beef. I mean, it was beautiful, but it just reminded me of a rib of beef. It made me laugh. And on Kaz's, I've put sci-fi, love it. Now, Kaz's did definitely give more costume, but I mean, me and Kaz today, we would look like, you know, if she was wearing her transformation outfit and I was wearing this, we could definitely go, you know, go cosplay together. It was fantastic. By the way, Kaz, if you fancy doing that, I'm totally up for it. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed the transformation challenge, and they placed Novella in 9th place, Jess was 8th, Gaynor 7th, Orla 6th, Stuart was in 5th place, Dan in 4th, 3rd was Yasmin, 2nd was Kaz, and 1st was Kit. So going into the made to measure, I was very worried for Novello, and I was very worried for Dan. And I was a little worried about Jess as well. So I was really, you're kind of really willing for them to do well in the made to measure, because, you know, once it gets to that end challenge, you know, whoever does the worst kind of goes home. So yeah, the made to measure was a really, really lovely challenge. Time for the models to come back. They do get to practice this at home. It was a military coat called the cholak, and it was for any gender, so they could have made it for a male or female. It's a military coat style with lots of pleats and ties. So if you imagine like a wrap dress with ties, but for men's wear or women's wear. And yeah, it was really, I find these kinds of challenges really, I think that this is where I would struggle. If I was on the bee, lots of people would ask me if I'd ever go on, and I think I would really struggle with these challenges, because I'm not sure I know enough about other influences that would help me. I thought it was fantastic that Jess took her influences from designers. I loved that Kaz just stayed really true to herself and just took her own kind of unique style, but popped it into the challenge. I love that Novella went dragons, you know, the dragons Korea, dragons Wales, and kind of mixed and matched it up. I loved that Gaynor stayed true to herself and just made a really beautiful pleated dress. Stuart's, I particularly liked his trench coat. So he took British military and Korean military and mashed them together and made this gorgeous denim trench coat, which I thought was stunning. Could have done with a little bit of pressing. I think an extra 10 minutes at the end of pressing, that would have come down the runway looking absolutely fabulous. Orla was just so true to herself, did the little flower motif on the back of her outfit. It did look very different from the others, but in a good way. And again, I like unique. And, I like the fact that people do things that are unique and special. I loved Yasmin. I loved Yasmin's. It was really striking coming down the runway. And she had the idea of having removable sleeves that you could take on and off, and she had these tiny little rouleau loops and tiny little buttons. So I mean, I'm not quite sure you could remove them quickly, but it did look really lovely, and you could see like a little bit of skin through, but it did look like they were definitely attached. So it was as well as being a practical element, it was definitely a design element, and I was there for it. Absolutely loved it. So Kit's had lots of impact coming down the runway, but for me, I just felt Kit's felt a little bit safe. It was more of a kind of copy than an interpretation. For me, it was, you know, and the model looked very similar colour way to me today. So yeah, I mean, it was great. It was fantastic. It was very well made, but it just felt a little bit safe. In the same way, I felt that Jess's was a little bit safe as well. But, you know, it's all good. All good. And Kaz's just had such drama going down that runway. But I have to talk to you about Dan. So I love Dan. You all know I love Dan. I think Dan's great. And when he was talking about what he was making, Esme and Sarah both pointed out that it was going to look very Christmas. It was red and green. It was a quilted fabric. He was making kind of like a wrap over jacket. And I was like, it's going to look like a smoking jacket. It's going to look like Hugh Hefner on Christmas morning. And it kind of did. But you know what? I really liked I really liked it. I mean, it was crazy. It was totally bonkers. But I was there for it. Yeah, but I was still worried for Dan at the end. I think it was definitely between Dan and Novella for going home. And yeah, and in the end, it was Novella's time. So Novella went home and Kaz won Garment of the Week, which I totally agreed with. I thought Kaz's was absolutely stunning and very Kaz. And I think this is the thing that I like about Made to Measure. I like when you can see the contestant in the make, you know, obviously on the model, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I thought that was absolutely fantastic. So I hope that you like the new style of the way that I've done this video, and I hope that it all makes sense to you. As I said, if you stay to the end, you will see my little interview with the lovely Luke, last year's winner, and find out what they think of the newbies. So Luke, tell me what you think about this year's cohort of the newbies.
Oh, it's so strange to see them all. I know the bees from the season before mine said it was really crazy to see newbies enter the sewing room, but they're all so talented. You know, my bunch was such a fun, creative group. This year I feel like everyone is super technical.
Cool. Would you like to do it again?
I mean, if there was ever going to be an All-Stars, I'd love to go on again. Not even just to see like Patrick and Esme, but that whole experience is just so fab. I tell anyone to audition.
I know we've only had a couple of weeks, but what's been your kind of favourite challenge? What one would you have liked to have done, do you think?
I would have loved to have done the whole of last week. Like, their design icons it felt really up my street with the Versace with the Vivienne Westwood challenge as well. But I think there's been a couple of standouts, like Orla's first Made to Measure was a real standout for me. And then Kaz's Dorothy Versace dress as well was a great one.
Yeah.
Quite similar to something I made for a drag queen once upon a time.
Yeah, I definitely felt like I'd kind of recognised it. So really cool. And next week, I am so excited. I am so excited for next week. It is my favourite week of sewing week. It is the reuse, recycle week, which I absolutely love. I love it. I love it. So get ready for lots of zero waste patterns, upcycling, using all of your scraps. Can't wait. So join me next week for the next episode, and I will see you again really soon. Don't forget to sparkle. Bye for now.